Call the meeting county council to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Smith, roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson,
Here.
Mrs. Fatika,
Here.
Mr. Horton,
Here.
Mr. Leone,
Here.
Mrs. Law, Mr. Rastetter,
Here.
Chairman Faust.
Here. Hearing to the public, all those that called in ahead of time will have 5 minutes. Anybody thereafter will have 3. Mr. Brendel, who was on the agenda, called in tonight and said he wouldn't be able to make it. So with that, Mr. Barnes, I thought I saw him here earlier. If you could, before you start, give us your name and municipality, then you're on your
My
own.
name is Randy Barnes, Harbor Creek. Dr. Faust is my representative, and it's great to be here. I welcome the newest members of council, and I congratulate them, and also those that earned the trust of the citizens and were reelected. Congratulations, and welcome aboard. I feel like you guys are the control of a big ship, a bridge. You're the bridge of a large freighter. We call it Erie County. Hey, I wanted to mention this site that you're not aware of. It's kind of like the least known site. It's called Regional College PA. It's easy to remember, regionalcollegepa.org. That's the Northern Pennsylvania Regional College. They've renamed themselves from the Rural Regional College to the Northern Pennsylvania Regional College. regionalcollegepa.org. You know, elected officials ask for this college. And every elected official should be supporting this college and encouraging businesses to speak up. This college will teach the discipline that they are told is needed. Make them say no. I repeat that, make them say no. Come to me and tell me what they won't teach, what is needed, and they won't teach it. To not support this taxpayer-funded initiative that many of you asked for, it's a disservice and it's a wasteful. You're wasting the taxpayers' money by not supporting this. You're doing a disservice to the people that need this the most. $180 for a credit hour for adults. $60 a credit hour for juniors and seniors in high school. Then go in the summer and pick up some cheap credits at $60 an hour. See what it's like to go to college. You know, I've been out of the area quite a bit lately. I haven't been able to come to a lot of council meetings, unfortunately, but I get fascinated when I travel and I see these large freighters. You know, the Panama Canal, 2 years ago they just opened with a $6.6 billion upgrade, and that upgrade was to take in these large cargo ships through the 50-mile journey. And these larger cargo ships now can hold up to 14,000 containers. And you've seen these cargo ships on the stern. They have this large tower that's 10, 12 stories high, and across is the windows, and that's the bridge. And again, when I look at you, I think of you people as the commanders. You're up there on the bridge. You're controlling this SS Erie County large mass. You're directing us. You're on the bridge. You have control. And you're part-time. Unfortunately, you're part-time, where on a real ship, they need full-time control. But this ship, this SS Erie County, burns, what's it burn? Tax dollars, right? That's how it moves. That's how you direct it. That's how you run the controls. It burns tax dollars. And these tax dollars, you don't have a lot of control over a lot of them. I mean, I realize we go through over $1 million every day, Saturday to Sunday, holidays, 4th of July, every day, we're burning through well over $1 million that you have control over. But you don't have control over that much because you got to have the lights on, the jail's got to be open, the health department, all those necessary functions. I won't go into them because I don't have that much time. But you have control over a little bit. That little bit is called the gaming revenue money. You have a lot of control over that. that little slice of that millions of dollars that is funneled through this building every day, every year. But by all metrics, everything we can measure, we have the zip code, I think that we're in, is the poorest zip code in the state of Erie, the state of Pennsylvania, state of Pennsylvania. The prime real estate, I go to any city I can think of, the prime real estate, the highest rent, is downtown, in the hub, in the core of the city, but not in Erie, Pennsylvania. So by all metrics, this Erie County is not really going in a good direction. And I wish I could expand on that because I only had 400 words, but I think I've spoke about 1,000 already. So I'm going to leave you with that tonight and hope to be back maybe a month from now. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public wish to be heard? You'd step right up. Anybody? Okay, not seeing any. We'll move on to have a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Leon,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Fatika. Is there any changes or edits to those minutes? Mr. Smith, roll call, please.
On the minutes, Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Fatika,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Dr. Faust.
Yes, our colleague, Mr. Horton, is under the weather a little bit tonight, so if he doesn't have the powerful voice that he normally has, you'll have to excuse him tonight for that. So hopefully he'll get better soon. Reports of other county officials, county executive or her designee. Thank you, Mr. Sparrow. Finance Committee, Mrs. Fatika.
Yes, the Finance Committee met on February 1st and agreed to put forward under old business items A, B, C, and D, and under new business, items A through I. That concludes the finance report.
Thank you, Mrs. Fatika. Any questions? There was no personnel action, so we don't have a report there. Reports of other members of council, Mr. Horton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. I come to you tonight kind of with mixed emotions. It's been 89 days since the USA Today 24 Wall Street article cited Erie, Pennsylvania as being the worst place in America for blacks to live. To date, I myself haven't taken any action, or my colleagues. I haven't heard or seen anything action taken from the county executive, from the mayor of the city of Erie, both past and the mayor-elect. I haven't seen or heard any tangible action taken from city council, the nonprofit community, which really baffles me in light of the United Way announcement. I haven't heard anything or seen any substantive action taken from clergy, both black or white. And so, you know, it's quite troubling to me. Mr. Barnes came, and I usually don't comment on our speakers, but since he's talking about the community college and what we should or could, or what we don't look like, or what we should, I submit to you for argument that things like summer jobs or community colleges are not only do they give hope to those who are least vulnerable amongst us, they actually bear fruit. And so we absolutely support the regional rural college or any opportunity that's presented to the citizens of Erie County. However, we do realize that currently the Rural Regional College, or whatever the new name is that he just told us about, we realize that they cover over 7,000 square miles, and they have about 100 students in those 7,000 square miles. Not 100 students in each county, 100 students total. Now that number may have changed a little, but probably not enough to substantiate us abandoning our plans. It doesn't come anywhere near the scale of the problem. we at the county, where we are charged of human services, should be really, really concerned about that. I propose, I will be proposing in the future, because far be it for me to come in and just throw the problem out without offering up a solution. And I'm not sure it's the only solution, but in days and weeks to come, I will be approaching this body, approaching the city, and whosoever will, about community benefit agreements, which results in local hiring, which results in hiring Erie people, not just in construction jobs, but with the renaissance that's that we're undertaking through the Erie Refocus Plan. Just in my district alone, a few blocks from here, we have close to $1 billion worth of development going on. And I don't see a lot of people of color or women on those projects, which is almost shameful. There's more to come. I think that it just makes good policy to do those type of agreements and ensure that we have local hire so that our dollars are not going back down 79 or going back down Interstate 80 at the end of the summer when my coworkers come up and sleep 6, 7, 8 to a room, shop and feed each other and take the money back to their community where it matriculates through their community 7 or 8 or 9 times. And so I'll be introducing community benefit agreements to whoever will listen. I'll be back at the next meeting. It won't be 89 days. Maybe it'll be 100-something days. Maybe we'll get a response. And finally, I know that the spring elections are coming up. And so that article isn't going away. I'll do everything that I can to keep it in the forefront of people's minds. And you know, and I'll say this and I'll be quiet because my mouth is hurting. When that article came out, it seems as if there were handpicked members of the African American community who disagreed with the article. I can tell you that the overwhelming amount of people that I've spoken with, and myself, although the numbers may have been skewed a little bit, the article's pretty accurate. And so, but at times like this, sometimes we handpick what we call leadership in the African American community, like we're this monolithic people, and we have a king, which we don't, and we go to him to get the politically correct answer. Oh, it's really not that bad. Well, I'm here to tell you, as an African American leader, it's that bad. And so if we're displacing people and gentrifying people in these neighborhoods, then we should at least be able to extract some type of tangible benefit for the citizenry that is being displaced and affected by it. I'll be back in a couple of weeks with more of an update on that 24 Wall Street USA Today article. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hort. I know we had a discussion a few weeks ago that at the end of 2017, you had an expert and a speaker come in about community benefit agreements. I was not able to make that meeting, and I would encourage you to, if we can, get that gentleman back to give us his perspective to hopefully guide us on that particular issue. Any other reports of members of council? Okay, it is a sad and solemn announcement that I have to make, that I was given some information at the end of last week that really affects anybody involved with county government, and by extension all of Erie County, and not necessarily for the good. And that's our good friend Mr. Maloney, for 38 years as the financial advisor of county council, because of his workload and his increasing workload at his own firm, has decided to resign that post effective at the end of this February. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think I can, in the sense that you will be sadly missed by this council, by the administration, I am sure, and by extension, the people of Erie County have benefited greatly from your expertise, your humanity, your good humor, and your professionalism that you have provided this council for so many years. And you will be sorely sorely missed, and it will be impossible to replace you. In his letter, which I will give to Danae to enter into the official record, he notes the many friends and accomplishments and the projects that he had the pleasure to work on, and I know that the friendships that you have enjoyed and the interactions that you have had, that has hopefully been reciprocated, because you're just a true gentleman, Joe, and I'm going to miss you. And I don't know if any members at this time would like to make any comments
I would.
regarding Mr. Leon?
Thank you. I've been on this council most of the time with Joe. Joe's been with us for over 38 years now. And to say you're going to miss him is just it's an understatement. Joe Maloney has been our stalwart as far as this county is concerned, as far as finances are concerned. I don't believe anyone, once Joe tells us this is the way it has to go, is willing to go against them. Because I believe he is a man of character, a man that I certainly will miss greatly. I don't know how he's going to be replaced, because I don't believe we're going to be able to find somebody that's good enough to be able to replace Joe. The sad part of the whole situation is that not only Joe is leaving, but Sue Ellen is leaving too.
What did we do to you people? Thought we were friends.
And like I said, I'll miss both of them, because they've both been excellent. And I don't know who we're going to depend on from here on out, Joe. But if you leave now, I'm not going to give you my taxes to do anymore. You're going to lose money on it. Yeah, Joe, I believe everybody on this council is going to miss Joe Maloney. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else? Mrs. Fatika?
Yes, this is a surprise. Joe served well. He was also a dear friend to Phil. And when I was appointed to council, he said to me, "Now, do you want to just sit down and go over the entire county budget? Let me know when you want to do that." Well, we haven't finished, so we'll have to talk about that date. Can we not accept the resignation until that job is done? But we will miss you, and I do wish you well. Thank you for everything, Joe.
Mr. Horton?
My mouth don't hurt that bad I'd be remiss if I didn't make comments. I came here just over 4 years ago, and a little precocious, and I didn't really have I thought I knew more than I did about county government, and I quickly found out that county government is just a behemoth of services, and it's impossible to know everything. But every time I came to Mr. Maloney with confusion or questions or uncertainty, not just about the numbers, because he's more than a bean counter, not just about the numbers, just about the nuances on council. When I had the notion to revisit the community college, I knew there were two people that I had to convince. And I knew I couldn't get the one unless I got Joe Maloney. Because he just said it, rarely does this body go against the advice of Joe Maloney. And so I was able to just open Fiore's mind enough to where the citizens of this county are going to benefit in just a really shortly time here. The Saturday morning budget, Sue Ellen, I'm not going to leave you out either. Can we still get wedding soup?
Sticky buns. I didn't even think about that.
Oh, my God, sticky buns.
I was getting to that. Just the epitome of a man and a gentleman. Politics around here isn't always friendly, but it can be a blood sport sometimes. But I've never seen your demeanor change. Not one instance in 4 years. You have been the stalwart. You've been the standard. You've been a steadying guide when the seven of us were looking for direction, and you provided that direction not only to council, but to the 280,000 citizens of Erie County. You're not going to be sorely missed by me, because unless you move out of the county, we'll still be calling on you. We will miss you. We'll miss your wit. We'll miss your expertise. We'll miss your professionalism. We can forget about finding a replacement, because that's not going to happen. What we'll find is another, which is vastly different from a replacement. There's no replacing a Joe Maloney. You're one of a kind. And I echo the sentiments of my colleagues. You'll be sorely missed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Anderson?
I hope that Sue Ellen and Joe aren't leaving because Scott and I have just gotten on the council. Anyway, we've only been here a short time, but Joe, you and I have worked on many community projects together outside of me being in elective office. And as everyone up here has said, certainly I have to echo that you are a gentleman, bar none. And working with you has been a pleasure. The expertise that you've brought to the community college argument, to its potential success, will never be able to be measured by the citizens of this county. And for that, we are all in a debt of gratitude to you. And I look forward to working with you on other projects outside of Erie County still, and continuing the fight with the community college. But I wish you well in everything that you do.
Thank you, I'll still be around.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
I just want to say thanks for getting this all prepared and getting these guys in line so I don't have to deal with a bunch of real nummies. Good luck, Sue Ellen, Joe, good luck. Happy retirement.
We should hold our superlatives till we see what the budget process looks like next fall, to be quite honest with you. Joe has promised two things, by the way. One, he would like to be involved in the community college application, et cetera. So I would, based on what we've said here and what we've experienced, I would encourage council administration to secure that advice and that professionalism and expertise whenever we can. And two, also, he has agreed to try to help with a transition to get the replacement in place. And really what I would like for that first step to be, if you could, is to work with Doug to come up with an RFP process to put that out for proposals to the community to secure our next financial advisor. That's how Joe got the job to begin with. I think that's a good, open, transparent process, so I would hope we would do that, okay? But to both, we'll have superlatives for Sue Ellen sooner rather than later, but tonight is Mr. Maloney's night, so. But thank you both very much. Okay, so moving on to old business. A second reading of ordinance number 9, please, and title only.
A second reading of ordinance number 9, 2018, fourth 2018 general fund budget, supplemental appropriation of $15,500 for review of county's deferred compensation plans.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Leon and seconded by Mr. Horton. Is there any discussion? Mr. Smith, roll call, please.
On ordinance 9, Mrs. Fatika,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Chairman Faust.
Yes. Second reading of ordinance number 11, please, and title only.
A second reading of ordinance number 11, 2018, fifth 2018 general fund budget, supplemental appropriation of $38,000 for increase in professional fees.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Leon and seconded by Mrs. Fatika. Is there any discussion? For those of you that may be new to our meetings, by the way, the screen has the action that we are voting on. It gives a little bit more explanation to it. Ordinances for council procedure, they need 2 full readings until they can be passed, unless we move first readings to a second to expedite the matter a little bit more. You'll see us doing that in a little bit. And then when we get on to our resolutions, because those are not in fact law, they just require 1 reading. So any further discussion on ordinance number 11? Roll call, please, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Fatika,
Yes.
Chairman Faust.
Yes. Possible adoption of resolution number 12, please, in title only.
Resolution number 12, 2018, approving solicitor contracts submitted by the Office of Tax Assessment, Board of Assessment Appeals.
So second.
Moved by Mr. Leon and seconded by Mr. Horton. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Leon?
I'm just checking to make sure that this language has been approved by our solicitor.
Yes, sir, this
Okay,
reflects
thank you.
his recommendations.
Would that be the same for the next one, too?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, on resolution number 12, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Fatika,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Chairman Faust.
Yes. Possible adoption of resolution number 14, please, in title only.
Resolution number 14 of 2018, approving an agreement for legal services between the County of Erie and Knox, McLaughlin, Gornell, and Senate PC.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Leon and seconded by Mr. Horton. Is there any discussion? As you can see, this resolution has to deal with a contract to hire a law firm with primarily our labor negotiations coming up.
Great.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Fatika,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Leon,
Yes.
Chairman Faust.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Leon?
I'd like to move to make second readings of ordinance number 12 and ordinance number 13.
So second.
Along with that, I don't know,
Yeah.
I'll wait. Okay. Along with that, I'd also like to include Dave Mitchell's appointment for the Land Bank and Sandra Meyer's appointment to the OCY proposed by Scott Rastetter.
That's moved by Mr. Leon. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Horton. Is there any discussion regarding the amendment of tonight's agenda? Mr. Smith, roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Fatika,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Chairman Faust.
Yes. Now we'll have a second reading of ordinance number 12, please, in title only.
A second reading of ordinance number 12, 2018, 2018 general fund budget, supplemental appropriation of $34,350, and creation of line items for the 2017-2018 DUI enforcement grant.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Anderson and seconded by Mr. Horton. Is there any discussion? Mr. Smith, roll call, please.
On ordinance 12, Mrs. Fatika,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Chairman Faust.
Yes. Second reading of ordinance number 13, please, in title only.
A second reading of ordinance number 13, 2018 general fund budget, revised expenditures of $8,332, and the approval of a solicitor contract for the clerk of records office.
Make a motion.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Anderson, seconded by Mr. Leon. Is there any discussion? Mr. Horton?
Yeah, Mr. Smith, the solicitor signed off on this one as well?
Yes, sir, he did.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Smith.
On ordinance 13, Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Fatika,
Yes.
Chairman Faust.
Yes. Possible adoption of resolution number 16, please, in title only.
Resolution number 16 of 2018, resolution approving a revision to Erie County's fiscal year 2014 Community Development Block Grant Program.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Leon. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Smith.
On Resolution 16, Mr. Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Fatika,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Chairman Faust.
Yes. Possible adoption of resolution number 17, please, in title only.
Resolution number 17 of 2018, approving solicitor contracts submitted by the Erie County Coroner.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Leon and seconded by Mrs. Fatika. Is there any discussion? Mr. Smith, roll call, please.
On Resolution 17, Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Fatika,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Leon,
Yes.
Chairman Faust.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Leon.
you know, before I make this motion, I just want you and everyone else to know that I'd like to do a little more work on it. I just want to digest it more than anything else. I may agree with the total concept of this particular resolution, but I would like to wait at least one more meeting. With that in mind, I'm going to move the table.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Leon and seconded by Mrs. Fatika. And with that, we move right to the roll call, please, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Fatika,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Dr. Faust.
Yes. Without objection, could I have a motion to approve the appointments listed in our agenda tonight with items F through I, as well as the additions proffered by Mr. Rastetter?
So move, second.
Moved by Mr. Horton and seconded by Mr. Leon. Is there any discussion regarding any of those particular appointments? Mr. Smith, roll call, please.
Mrs. Fatika,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Chairman Faust.
Yes,
Move to adjourn.
council stands adjourned.